This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Bill King from Nashville Sports Radio, the king of college football talk, joining us on Wednesdays here. We always appreciate that. Hi, Bill. How you doing today?
What's up, guys? Good to be with you.
Good to be with you, too. We've been talking Arkansas versus Texas A&M for the last couple of days. And the last segment, I started positing the idea. It's like I don't think that Texas A&M has that kind of explosive offense where they can just take advantage of what really has been the issue for the Razorbacks. Now, they've stopped the run, and they understand that Devin Achane is a great running back, but Arkansas has stopped the run for 3 consecutive weeks. They've been weak in the secondary, and as far as tackling is concerned, that's been the number one thing. I just don't know if there's anything about A&M. And A. Smith is a good wide receiver. I'm not sure what else they have as far as pass catchers are concerned. And they're on Max Johnson, a second quarterback, and it's only week 4. Is there anything about Texas A&M offensively that if you were Barry Odom, you're like, you got to watch out for this because this is what can beat us?
No, they're trying to identify their personality on that side of the ball. They don't really know what it is. And with Max Johnson, who we've seen play many times before, but they're limited, and they don't score points easily. And now they're salty defensively. The flip side of this is I like Arkansas's offense certainly better than I like A&M's, but it still might not be a high points game where you're up in the high 20s or something. So you have to be careful that you don't get caught in a 14 to 13 or 17-14 game too.
I wonder if you can point out to any team that has had this kind of, like boom or bust kind of a defense. I mean, you look at the statistics, and even if you let's forget about the statistics and just watching the game, but it's still statistically to lead the nation in sacks 3 weeks into the season and to be dead last in passing yards allowed. Like, these are two things that don't usually go together. I can't think of another team that's been quite like that in my lifetime. Right.
That is an odd partnership when it comes to stats. It really is. It's going to be fun, guys. This is, other than Florida, Tennessee, because it's certainly got more history to it, that's probably my favorite game this weekend.
Well, what do you think of Florida, Tennessee? I mean, this is Florida, they've had their one big win against Utah. They kind of fell flat against Kentucky. Tennessee, they had a big road win against Pitt. And, we're kind of thinking, who's second in the SEC East? Because Georgia looks like another world beater. But if you're fighting for second, Kentucky, that looks like second. Well, then who's third? Is this the game for third place?
Might be. And Tennessee, Kentucky play every year, obviously. And then Georgia's looming. But this is going to be fun because Tennessee's never even been a touchdown favorite in this series, and they're 10.5 to 11. The most they've ever been favored was the early 2000s when Ron Zook was the coach at Florida, and it was 5.5. The nervousness here is the rat poison. Is this team soaking this in? Because Florida has owned this series. They've won 16 of the last 17, and Tennessee's only won 7 of them since the mid-'70s. Now, they didn't play every year leading up to the East and the West, but that's still a pretty damning statistic.
Could there be rat poison in an Arkansas win over A&M? You get Alabama the week after, 2:30 CBS. They took that game, a couple days ago. Hogs are feeling really good about it. Fans are feeling really good about it. They talk a lot. They say all the right things about one game at a time. I remember last week, it's like, I don't know. They were looking ahead to A&M. I'm not sure if they took Missouri State 100% seriously. We've had fans ask us here, you beat A&M. Do you believe in the idea of momentum going into Alabama or confidence going into Alabama? I'm like, well, that didn't work last year against Georgia. Could there be rat poison in an Arkansas win over the Aggies?
I don't think so, because the biggest, baddest brand in the history of college football is next up.
Yeah.
And that won't allow any rat poison to seep in. The only problem with that is, and we can jump ahead, Alabama's not playing that well. Their lines of scrimmage aren't dominant. there's not a receiving core or an individual there that takes the top off a defense. The running back transfer is good. Quarterback's a superstar. But the lines of scrimmage, they've been decent. But they're not Alabama bully good. And they're certainly not anywhere near they've been at wide receiver. And maybe that's a tough comparison, but they just don't scare people.
All right, well, I'll let you look ahead a little bit then. Let's just say Arkansas. We'll talk next week. We'll talk next week. Let's have you look ahead a little bit. We got people texting in saying this is the year. 11-1. Think they beat Alabama. This is the year, and it's all there in front of you. You've got a dominant pass rusher in Drew Sanders and a couple of others. You've got a running back who looks like a world beater too in Rocket Sanders. KJ's played well. You control the line of scrimmage. I mean, is there anything that you've seen in these first 3 weeks? And it's only 3 weeks. You got another 8 games or another 9 games. I mean, are there things that you watch right now that you say, you know what, maybe depending, Alabama might be a little down. Maybe this is Arkansas's year to rise up in the West?
This is a good opportunity. I think they match up better in this game than they've matched up since they played, in the Sugar Bowl in the late 70s when Alabama won a national championship. I do. I really do. I think this could be an interesting matchup. Now look, I also want to make sure I have this caveat. I'm comparing Alabama to national championship level teams, their teams. And my point is I don't see that yet. And then is there room to grow into that? I think so, but I'm not seeing it today. Arkansas absolutely on both sides of the line of scrimmage matches up better today than they have, and I don't know when.
Yeah, Bill, it definitely does feel like that. And when it comes to Alabama, the reason why I feel like so many people are, feeling a little bit confident, feel like that Arkansas matches up is because even though they didn't lose, you got to see some blood in the water with that close win against Texas. You got to see that Bama is a little vulnerable, that they can be beat by a really, really good team. If you're Alabama, what are the main things you're working on this week against Vandy, basically, going up against the JV of the SEC or, basically being able to do whatever you want like you're in spring practice?
I would say if it's Nick, it's feeding them all the negativity that's out there. And I'm probably overstating that, but he'll find the negativity, right? He's the best at doing that too. And probably shoring up that offensive line. That offensive line can't bully people still. And they're still trying to find their best fivesome. And they don't have a tight end that you have to worry about at all. And I just say solidify what you've got. Make sure you get your young guys. You had 2 receivers who may take the top off who've been injured. One just returned. You got the Louisville kid who hadn't played, and he's a speed guy. You probably want to implement them in there, too, and see if you can get some verticality out of your passing game.
Mm-hmm. Not too far away from Tuscaloosa, down to Auburn. How long is Brian Harsin an Auburn resident after what happened against Penn State?
Well, I'd be shocked if he doesn't know it's over, but the formality of it, and with the recruiting calendar and everything else moved up, people are getting fired early. Herm Edwards is gone. As we know, Frosty got fired a couple of weeks prior, and that's probably the trend. Now, I would say they'd have to hit rock bottom again somewhere, and if they do somewhere along the line, they may go ahead and make the move. I don't think – I'd be shocked if they don't announce something by the time we get to maybe put your over and under like Halloween or something. Mm-hmm. That'd be a good bet right there.
In this case, they're not going to let Harsin even get to the Iron Bowl, where maybe Auburn plays well enough to hey, we need to keep him around. But I read Aaron Suttles in the Athletic, and it's like, well, here come the stories about Harsin, not recruiting as well as Auburn should, and you've got 6 different high school coaches that are polled, and 4 of them are saying, well, he's never been to our school. They don't look ahead like Alabama does, this and that. It's when this stuff comes out, and you've been blown out at home on national television by a team that you beat on the road last year, and the boosters investigating the program and everything. It's like the writing's already on the wall. It's right there for you. When the stories start coming out, it's like, all right, people are whispering to reporters, man.
Yeah, it's. I'm sure it's very toxic. The AD got run. Obviously, he had a limited contract, but that's horrible news. And I'm sure it's tough. It's a tough gig right now, getting up and going in there every day and trying to remain professional in front of your team, which part of your job is doing that. I'm sure he's doing that, but they got to make a move. There's no question that they will make a move.
Did you see where? Forget what game this was. I think it was the LSU Mississippi State game. Greg Sankey was on and talked about, focusing on a single division, really just having like the 14 or the 16 teams lined up in the standings and doing away with divisions, which makes so much sense. But he also said that there's no consensus right now on the 9-game schedule or the 8-game schedule. And here it is. I mean, I'm thinking if you've got a 16-team league and you're not going to do divisions, like, you got to have the 9-game schedule. But there he is. He's saying there's no consensus on this. And I kind of thought that sooner or later the consensus would start leaning towards 9 games. Is there any surprise you feel about this?
I think they'll go to 9, but they don't have to. They already get more people in the playoffs than anybody else. And when we expanded here to the number which they're saying is going to be 12, then they're just the committee already is okay with them playing 8. Now, the reason to play 9 would be just another attractive in-league. That's the reason you would do it, and there's more revenue doing that than bringing in Akron and paying them, whatever you're going to pay them. That's the only reason for that. But playoff-wise, they're as safe as you can be, and when they expand it, you're going to be, heck, if you go back and look, there could be years they have 4 teams in that thing. And the committee doesn't give a rip whether they play 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm. And with the schedule being released yesterday, Bill, does that firmly close the door that there's not going to be a surprise OU Texas entry in 2023, that 2024 really is the earliest we can get it?
I would say that's their assumption. I don't think quietly that's been given up on. But I think that's the assumption. Assume that the full letter of the contract is going to play out. And if we can have something happen that would expedite this, the more the merrier. I mean, you can jerk with it's a pain, but you can jerk with those schedules if you have to get them in earlier.
Mm-hmm.
When will Georgia finally have a good game? I mean, they've just completely blown out 3 teams in a row. One of them was an 11th ranked team. Another was an SEC team. They got Kent State, then Mizzou, then Auburn, then Vanderbilt. I mean, is Georgia going to beat everybody by 30 points or more this year? Because it certainly looks like they could.
The only thing is just pure boredom. Week after week, destroying your opponent, putting up crazy stats, getting to play the young guys, which is very important, and keeping that team 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old players with the reality of what can happen on a bad day. I don't really think that's going to happen. That's what you're saying during the regular season. I just don't see it. They're double-digit favorites over everybody on the regular season schedule. But it would have to be just overall boredom and complacency. And if Kirby Smart's a pretty fiery guy, I don't know that happens on his watch.
They've got to be bored of the quote unquote rivalry with Georgia Tech. I mean, it's really not too much of a rivalry here, is it? I mean, we had somebody text in earlier. It's like, well, you're not. Reese Davis had brought up the idea of like play a 10-game SEC schedule. I kind of like that, but somebody else, posited, well, South Carolina's going to have a problem with that. They want to play Clemson. Florida's going to have a problem with that. They want to play Florida State or they want to play Miami, and Georgia's going to have a problem with that too. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't really think Georgia cares very much about Georgia Tech. Like, if there's a rivalry to give up, that's the one.
I'm with you. Now, I don't know if anybody would say that publicly, but it's true. There's no rivalry. Georgia Tech's going to have to run Jeff Collins. He's not going to survive. and they'll hire another guy. They'll reach, and it won't work out. I think you're right. Now, I don't know if that means we're not going to see that game, but I don't think anybody would miss that game. I don't think Georgia fans would say, dang, I miss the good old days when we played Georgia Tech.
Think Oklahoma fans are going to miss Bedlam?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a special series.
Yeah.
And it's a shame it's got to go, but we all know it's going to go, and maybe, down the road somebody will get them together, but that's sad. I hate that.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports, contests, and events with first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews and news for every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports information, from live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to join today and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50 to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50. Bet online, where the game starts.